All right, so we're going to move forward with our Venn diagram. So I'm talking about bridge people, I'm talking about conflict, and I'm talking about us and that invisible realm of us. And I'm going to put them together right now. So one type of bridge person is a dialogue facilitator, somebody who is an intermediary between relationships, right? And so I'm going to show you what is something that this intermediary does in this invisible realm, right? So we've got you and me, blue and yellow, and then we have us, which is green, the overlap of you and me. And as you'll notice, green is different than blue or yellow, because when we come together, we create the third, right? 1 + 1 = 3, a third thing. And so now when we are addressing relationships, i.e., simple one is to think of a marriage or a parent-child or sibling or friendship relationship, right? That's where you can just see the way two people come together and create this third, that is a relationship. And when something goes wrong or something is out of alignment or something is broken, there are people like me who can be who can intervene, if you will, gently in that invisible space between people. And we also do that in between groups of people, right? Blue people and red people, if you will. Older people, younger people, men and women, black people, white people, brown people, green people, whatever it is. That's another space in between. And so one of the things that you might notice is that when we get into that space in between, as I said, we're in something other than the you or the me or the us and the them. And what that also means, and this gets tricky for some people, is we're also outside of the realm of victim and offender. And that's significant only because when we are in trouble in a relationship, when we are in deep distress in relationships, whether between individuals or groups, it is really natural for us to say, you're the problem, it's your fault, and I'm blaming you, or we blame you. And while that can be true, that there can be a person or a group at fault, what you find when you get into this space in between is that it's not as simple as that. And that's actually good news, which we'll talk about some other day. But when I, as a bridge person, as a facilitator, as an intermediary, as a mediator, get in that in-between space, and I start to see what two people or two groups or more create together, first of all, we have opportunities to address things that are way more complicated and therefore have a lot more power than if it's just me versus you and we're going to have some kind of negotiation and compromise. But if we're in that in-between space where where you and me or us and them have created a third, then we have this very amorphous world where we're all part, or you and I are both part of what has created the nature of this us part, right? And so I can start to see, this is actually where I have blame, if you will. And my husband and I will tell you how this blew our minds in the early part of our relationship, how a single different way of seeing my responsibility changed the game completely. More to come. But what happens for a facilitator in this space is, most importantly, we have to take all sides. I have to take your side and I have to take their side. And that ability for me to see the truth and the goodness and the perspective of the two parties or the multiple parties is what allows me to move in that space in a very different way than if I were just like, oh, your problem, your problem, what are we going to do to compromise? Or who are we going to decide is the guilty party? And so this is where we begin to understand that people who do their work in this in-between space have a very important role, number one, but are accessing a whole technology for communication and intervention that, as I keep saying, has often been not only unseen, stereotyped, caricatured, or misunderstood. And so this is the beginning of me helping us all to see what actually is happening in this powerful space.